Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you this morning.
Dr. Paul, how are you this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
We're ready and raring to solve another problem.
I hope so, at least
But
one.
they keep coming back again.
Whack-a-mole.
Incomplete.
Yeah.
But that's fortunate for the people who sell vaccines.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if there's a coincidence there. It's just accident, or they're just on top of it all. They're way ahead of us because
They
know when the next vaccine's coming.
We need to sell
next
some vaccines.
variant, and exactly how many people are going to get it, and exactly how many people are going to have to get a vaccine, and how many boosters they have. They have all those calculations down. But that's being, facetious, so I don't want to be that way. But then again, things are happening. It's worldwide. We've been warned. This is a virus. It's all over the place and continue to expand, and something I don't think ever happened before, where all the nations together have said the same thing, and they've all been on scaremonger tactics, and yet they don't answer to and don't feel challenged by the fact that maybe there is no easy answer. Maybe there isn't just one neat little vaccine that a few people take. Oh, the virus is gone. It seems like the more shots you give, the more you need.
Yeah.
So they're addicted to the shots now. But I want to talk about Austria.
Terrible.
They're determined.
Yeah.
They're still worried. Of course, 3 months ago, everybody says it's over. And in many ways, some people still argue that. The people who are out on the streets who want their freedom back, they're saying it. They don't walk around with their head in the sand thinking that they're going to die if they go outdoors. But there's still a lot of determination by the medical authorities, the people who know everything, and that if you disagree with them, you're unscientific and you should be punished. You're a dangerous person. But Austria has decided that that it's been creeping in to the various countries where it's good to tell the officials if somebody's disobeying. Of course, what happens when we tell them about the politicians who disobey and they don't wear their mask? Nothing seems to happen to them. But that's been around, but now Austria's taken one step further. It almost looks like they're hiring people. These people, maybe the people are tired of just reporting, and now they want paid for it, and they still don't have enough people to spy on other people. So now they're saying, maybe we ought to pay the people to tell us which members of their family won't listen to us, listen to them. So it's showing how far this has gone along, but the evidence, and we'll mention once again, a little bit of evidence that shows that the panic is overstated and quite possibly they're exaggerating.
Yeah, well, Austria is the birthplace of some pretty bad philosophies. But this is according to the Swiss paper Blick, and this is by way of Paul Joseph Watson. We can put up that first clip today. They're reporting that the Austrian town of Linz, which is a pretty big town, 200,000 citizens in Linz, but they're only 67% vaccinated. It's kind of funny because I remember, maybe my memory's going, Dr. Paul, but even Fauci said, if we get around 50%, it's going to be herd immunity, easy going. But Linz, only 67% are vaccinated. So apparently, according to the Swiss paper, as reported by Watson, they are hiring people. They put out ads. They're hiring people to go around and find out these refuseniks, the people who refuse to take the prescribed medical treatment for you, which we know, even Walensky says, doesn't stop transmission, doesn't stop infection. Nevertheless, Deus Vult, we said it, you better take it. And so they're going to send people around to make sure these people who don't have the shot or have to pay their $8,000 fine for not taking it, and possibly up to a year in prison. So if you don't let them inject you, $8,000 fine, a year in prison. I don't think this is going to do well for social harmony, to have a class of people going around rounding up other people because they think that they're a medical threat. I kind of think we've seen the movie before. And Dr. Paul, I think here's a spoiler alert to that movie. It's not going to be the same as it was last time. Let's look at this. There's a video clip that I wanted to put up. This is Austria saying, we don't want to have this vax passport. We don't want to be forced with injections of things into our bodies. If we can put up that first, here we go. Here's Austria. Here's their response to this. You can see the sign, Dr. Paul, Freiheit, freedom. We want our freedom. So there's going to be a clash. There's an inevitable clash between the authoritarians who are forcing this and the people who thankfully this time are rising up and saying, we've had enough.
You know, traditionally, and certainly in our Western movies, there was a lot of times rewards for turning in and capturing a bad person. Now, these people are getting paid. It looks like they're offering to pay
Good
them
money,
to go out
yeah.
and spy on.
Good money.
But what if they get a commission? What if
Yeah.
they decide to give them a commission? What if you get a reward of $2,000 in addition to your salary that you're getting? They could be made worse.
Yeah.
But it's awfully foolish and dangerous too, because this will be accepted casually, and then somebody else is going to try. So often it starts a little bit in one little country, and then it moves along. And people have to be alert. There's no doubt about it. There's not much else that we can do. So,
But you know, the juxtaposition, and we chose this on purpose, with the juxtaposition between our first story, which is Austria going just completely insane, the government going insane, and the next story, which is, if we can put up that next picture, the two of these, something is not right between the two of these. Here's a new study out of South Africa, the National Institute for Communicable Disease. Omicron has an 80% lower risk of hospitalization. New study shows. This is Bloomberg pointing this out, and they adjust. It's a preprint study, but they've adjusted for age, gender, et cetera, et cetera. So what they're finding out is, although Omicron, is taking over the others, as they suggested at the beginning, Dr. Paul, it's more transmissible but less virulent. Less people are dying, less people are going to the hospitals. Instead of celebrating what many people have said could be the COVID killer, this mild sort of form of virus, and I think it was the originator of the mRNA technology who said this could be could serve as an attenuated vaccine for people. Instead of celebrating that, Europe is still going complete bonkers.
You know what struck me is I haven't been thinking, maybe I'm wrong, that Bloomberg is not exactly on our side of this debate, because they participate in stirring up the fear as well. But very close to this headline, the Omicron has 80% lower risk of hospitalization. Sounds pretty good to me, and they're reporting, this was on their front page. But if you look down on the list of articles on that same day, it's warnings. Cloth mask may not be enough to Omicron in the Omicron fight, expert says. And then another one, Biden's team plans 4 million doses of COVID treatments in January. I mean, but it's all, we've heard of those stories, but it's surprising that you see this story
and then followed by
80% lower risk. Why wouldn't it sort of follow a pattern? There has to be a story elsewhere. They could have called us, and asked us. And then the best. Oh, no, they also are going to list the best and the worst places to be as Omicron upends Christmas, and that is getting together. And at Christmas, at least traditionally, most of the time that have families coming together from distant places. So I guess that's not on the books this year.
They're trying to do it again. They did it last year. Don't get together for Christmas. They're trying to use fear. It's very clear what they're trying to do. And next we want to talk a little bit about Israel, because I do feel sorry for the Israelis. They've been guinea pigs for the world for so long. And now they've got to line up, Dr. Paul, again for their second booster shot. That first one, what a surprise. They got another dose of the stuff that didn't work the first time, and it didn't work either, so they're going to get another dose of that. I wonder how long they're going to stand for this.
Yeah, and we've said it before, and other people have said it quite frequently in pointing out that the defense of civil liberties and the understanding of the authoritarian approach and expansion, once they get a little bit, they want more and more, that maybe the Israelis would be a little bit more guarded on their liberties than not. But they have not been good at all. I mean, they follow an authoritarian approach. But I don't know what their reasoning is, but it certainly doesn't seem to be the best way to protect personal liberty, and that's what countries that have been mistreated and over the years and considered the pariah that they would be really looking for protection, philosophically speaking.
Yeah.
But this falls into the trap of saying, we have to be careful, and that's why we have all these rules and regulations, and their security is pretty tough. So this is probably part of that security psychology that just goes to it. But it's skipped over to medical stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the borders protecting against their enemies.
Yeah.
It's also joining the gang that says that individuals can't even discuss, doctors can't even have a discussion about the pros and cons of this whole so-called pandemic.
Yeah, that's a good point, because our point has never been you shouldn't do it. Our point is you should have a choice, but it should be between you and your doctor. For some people, it may make sense to take this. It may well make sense, but it's certainly up to you and your doctor, not to some politician, ramming it down your throat. But here's from the Israel story. This is Arnon Shahar. He's a doctor with the Israeli health minister, and here's what he said. We are seeing a waning of protection against the Omicron infection. The translation for me is that the shots aren't working for it, but then I don't understand the conclusion then. If the shots aren't working against this, the Omicron, then why would you get more of the same shot that's not working against the Omicron? It's almost like they're trying to drive us crazy, right?
It seems like they've rejected common sense.
Yeah.
And in politics, there's a lot of resentment from people who sort of think that it would be a good thing to be consistent. If you say, we believe in ABC, to follow through and always follow ABC because that's what you said you believe in.
Yeah.
But that's considered to be a negative. That means you're rigid. You're a believer in philosophy, and you have to be more flexible. And that's why interventionism is so popular in all areas of government. Interventionism allows you to do whatever you want, and they don't have a basic principle other than interventionism is their principle. That it means you vary it. If you need money here, you take it from over here, and they have no principles whatever they have. They don't look at it and say, well, maybe the principle of private property would be a good idea. Maybe the principle that governments can't do anything that you and I can't do as individuals. That those principles, that they're taboo, because that really muddies the waters for the politicians, because they believe they can do what is necessary and what the people want, and what the people want is what we scare them about. And and yet it takes a long time, slowly recovering, but I think the recovery is there. People are now asking questions, but this is another surge. This should be looked at as something where they're desperate because they're losing the intellectual argument.
Yeah. Well, and in a related note, let's put on this next clip, if we can, the next picture. And here's the EU. Again, it does not seem to go along with what they're finding out of South Africa, and these are preliminary studies, but they've had a couple of months, or at least a month and a half, to look into it. But here's the EU. They're setting a binding 9-month validity of vaccinations for the COVID-19 travel pass. So even though, as some experts believe, that the Omicron may be the COVID killer and it goes away because it will overtake all the other stronger variants, even though that is happening, the EU was planning for a COVID passport. Every month it expires, or every 9 months it expires. Presumably you have to line up for a new shot or whatever it takes to get. I just don't see the connection. It seems like such a disconnect.
The way people react to these kind of things is important, and it can be two things. One, people seek security, and they're promised security and safety from the government. So this doesn't bother them too much. But then there's another group who's just they're risk takers. They believe in liberty. They believe that we should make our own decision for ourselves, and the difficult ones we work it out in a private, voluntary way. So there's these two groups. But I think the conditioning, I can understand a little bit of how that happens, because people feel they're intimidated by the fact that, if I don't have my vaccine passport, I can't go to the baseball game. But just think how much easier it's going to be.
Yeah.
They make it chaotic and say, look, if you go along with this, all of a sudden we'll grant you a little bit of your liberty back again. And the people say, they literally can see their passport as a benefit.
Yeah.
Say, oh, this freed us up. Before they were checking us out and doing all these tests, you might not have to get your temperature taken every time you go to the ball game or something like that. So they see that as a benefit. And that, of course, is once you mix these beliefs, then and believe in intervention that the government's supposed to be making us safe and secure, everything is up for grabs. And guess what? The authoritarians gravitate to this, even though they're in the sharp minority. There's few in numbers, but they are very aggressive. They get into government. I met a few. You probably even came across a couple. They're outright authoritarians. And you know, watching some of the newscasts now, people a lot of times ask me, "Do you think it's worse?" And I always say, "Well, it's been that way for 1,000 years." You know, but the truth is I think that authoritarianism and aggressiveness is worse than it was before, because you know a little bit of interaction I had with Tip O'Neill was never confrontational. He actually came across with me as a gentleman. I'm sure he had his days, but you know, and you think of him probably as you know, sitting down and having a drink with Reagan or something like that.
Sure.
But when you look at it, the current Speaker of the House, you know, sometimes it's very grating to have to watch her.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, you know, smart people, otherwise smart people, can be very naive, and you mentioned it, but someone like Jordan Peterson, you know, he admitted, I went and I took the shot because I thought, hey, if I take it, they'll leave me alone. And now it's gotten even worse. So this is what we're seeing. They're going to set that 9-month expiration. And it's interesting. Well, we'll see what happens with that. But let's move on. Here's the WHO. You know, we're not afraid enough. We're not miserable enough. Here's their leader, Tedros, WHO leader. By the way, not a doctor, not a medical professional, just like the next person we're going to talk about. But WHO's Tedros warns holiday gatherings could result in COVID-19 surge, urges people to cancel events, cancel Christmas, stay home, stay safe, shut up 15 days to stop the spread. We're back there again.
You know, they use this word quite frequently. The headline sounds terrible, and it looks like people will read this and it's almost like will happen, you know. But the could just gives them blanket thing to, you know, option to say anything they want, and I keep thinking, well, it could, but it might not, and I keep thinking, well, it could actually, you know, that they're fearing a breakout of sanity and liberty. You know, that's what they're scared of. That could happen too. So that's what we want to encourage. We want the could be to wake people up and say there's another option, rather than saying could means we have to believe then and be scared and give up Christmas when they tell us to.
Yeah. And then they'll say, well, I never said it would, I just said it could.
Yeah,
you know?
that's it.
I mean, I could grow another head out of my shoulder, right? But probably not going to happen. It wouldn't be a bad idea. The last one we want to talk about today is Bill Gates, because that well-known doctor, Bill Gates, who knows everything, right? He went on a rant the other day with a lot of tweets about, just don't put it up yet, please, about COVID. It's going to be the worst. Omicron's going to be the worst ever. But something really struck me, Dr. Paul, which is how he seems to be a little bit desperate to rewrite history, because it wasn't that long ago, and we have the receipts. They all said this vaccine would stop the transmission. Full stop, because that's what vaccines do throughout history. That's the whole point. Well, now let's put up this next tweet, because this is what he tweeted yesterday, and I've highlighted the part. He is changing reality. He says, vaccines are designed to prevent people from getting seriously ill or dying, and are doing that well. But that's not the case, and even he himself has said that's not the case. That's not what this vaccine was designed to do. And let's roll that second clip, because thankfully one of our good friends on Twitter put this up. Here's a little montage of people saying the exact opposite at the time, and I forget, I think we want to listen to 40-some seconds of this if we can put it on.
If you have these vaccinations.
These vaccines
are highly, highly effective.
Vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
They're really, really good against variants.
Everyone who takes the vaccine is not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people and allowing society to get back to normal.
Get your first shot, and when you're due for your second, get your second shot.
A key goal is to stop the transmission, to get the immunity levels up so that you get almost no infection going on whatsoever.
When people are vaccinated, they can feel safe that they are not going to get infected.
If you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized. You're not going to be in ICU.
So what they said and are recorded saying and are up there saying is diametrically opposed to what Bill Gates is saying now, which is they were never meant to do that. We never said that. Well, you did.
So he's challenging us. We shouldn't be talking about it because they say, forget it. There's no problems. There's, as if it's always, if you do what we tell you, that's always in there.
Yeah.
But here is a little quote from Gates in this deal. Omicron is spreading faster than any time in history.
Wow.
Boy, must be a pretty good historian.
Yeah.
But all conditions equal, there were times when there were no vaccines. You mean it's worse when you take the vaccines?
That's true. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah. And now that we're having these vaccines, these epidemics and pandemics are getting worse. It will soon be in every country. Well, that's probably their goal. At least the vaccines are spread. And I still think about Africa because I really believe the news came out. And you remember talking about it, that Africa wasn't the worst place in the world. It was way low. Then all of a sudden, they said that there was some production of vaccines that they can ship to South Africa. Then all of a sudden, there was a breakout.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's just a coincidence, Dr. Wall. Don't be a conspiracy theorist.
But this whole thing now that's going on, he's changing his tune. It's sort of like an afterthought.
Yeah.
Well, we said we were going to, or we implied we could do it, and vaccine was going to solve all our problems. Then all of a sudden, well, maybe not. Quite. But it's look how it's orchestrated. Especially if you're a celebrity or a senator, and you get up and you get a positive test, and all of a sudden it's the same statement. It's sort of like watching the major networks. Using the same phrases when they're reporting the news, but now they say yes, it was bad and it's unfortunate. But the one thing is, if I had not been vaccinated, it would have been a lot worse. I'm sure glad I followed the rules.
Yeah, and that may well be the case. But the fact is, logically, we can't know because we don't know how much worse it would have been. We do know by the numbers how deadly the virus is, and there's a 98, 99% recovery rate across the board. So it could have been, but there's no way of proving that. So anyway, I'm gonna close out if we're done, and I'm just gonna we're nearing Christmas. We're nearing a kind of a Christmas break. We've got a couple of surprises for you coming up that we'll talk about later. But I just wanted to wish all of you who celebrate Christmas a Merry Christmas and whatever other holiday you may celebrate around this time, and we'll have a chance to say it again, but also to remind you, and we don't do this very often, but as we move toward the end of the year, a lot of people do, for tax purposes and for other reasons, they do want to make an end of the year contribution to a 501c3 charity to get the credit off their taxes. For doing that, the Ron Paul Institute, which is the home of the Ron Paul Liberty Report, would very much appreciate if you would consider making your year-end donation to the Ron Paul Institute. I'll put a link in here, but if you just go to ronpaulinstitute.org, you will see the support button up there on top that you can click and make that tax-deductible donation before midnight on January 31st. I know you're still out shopping among the crowds, but just to plant that seed in your mind, and we appreciate your support very much.
Very, very good. Thank you, Daniel. I want to once again thank our viewers for tuning in and supporting us as you have. And also that the Christmas season is a very happy season for us at our family and our home. And it will be this year, and there's some special things. And right now we're working on a different type of a program for Christmas. And it's something that hasn't been totally finalized, but we assume that it will be ready. So sometimes on holidays we might not have anything special. We usually try to get something up every day, and most of the time we do. But this year we are, planning on a program that will be different. I hope that you tune in, certainly on Christmas Day, and that you also will enjoy the surprise program. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.